I found out on Tuesday that the money I had been saving for 10 years and sending to my son to build a home for my retirement was all gone. Everyone thought I would just curl up and stay silent. They don't know me. I started making calls. I have been a mother for 43 years. I know what that means. It means you give before you are asked. It means you go without so someone else doesn't have to. It means you look at a person you made from nothing and decide again and again that they are worth every sacrifice you can imagine and a few you couldn't have predicted. I am 67 years old. I have worked since I was 16. I have never missed a bill. Never asked anyone for anything I couldn't eventually give back. I tithed when I had it and I tithed when I didn't, because that's what my mother taught me and I believed her. And for 10 years, every month, I sent my son Jonathan money to build me a house. There is no house. The morning I found out it was a Tuesday. I remember that specifically. Tuesdays have always been my errand day. Dry cleaner, post office, grocery store, in that order. I had gotten back from the dry cleaner and was standing in my kitchen in Atlanta with my coat still on, looking at my phone, because Jonathan had sent me a text that said, "Call me when you get a chance, something I need to talk to you about." Jonathan did not typically initiate conversations unless he needed something. I had learned this gradually and had never said it out loud, because saying it out loud would have required me to look at it directly, and I preferred to look slightly to the left of it. I called him. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Mama." "Hey, baby. What's going on?" There was a pause, the kind of pause that has a shape to it. This one was rounded at the edges, soft, the pause of a man who has been rehearsing something and is now deciding whether his rehearsed version is still the one he wants to use. "So, I've been meaning to talk to you," he said, "about the house." I sat down at the kitchen table. I still had my coat on. "Okay." It's been complicated, Mama. The business has had a rough couple years, you know how it is, and I had some things come up with the mortgage, Jonathan. And I had to make some decisions, and I want you to know that I always intended to. Jonathan. My voice was very quiet. "Is there a house?" Silence. "Is there a house?" I said again. Not a question this time. "Not yet," he said. "But, Mama, I can explain." I set the phone down on the table. Not hung up. Just set it down. I could hear his voice continuing through the speaker, small and distant, explaining, justifying, arranging words into sentences that were meant to sound like reasons. I looked at my kitchen. The refrigerator I had had for 11 years, the curtains I had sewn myself from fabric I found at the Joann's on Piedmont, the photo of Jonathan on the wall from his college graduation, the one where he was smiling with his whole face and I was standing next to him thinking this is what it was all for. I picked the phone back up. "How much is left?" I asked. Another pause, shorter this time. He had known this question was coming. "Mama, how much is left of my money, Jonathan?" "It's complicated because it's been invested in the business, so it's not like it's just." "How much?" He told me. I will not write the number here because I already know it, and writing it again will not help me. What I will say is that it was a number that represented 10 years. 10 years of the extra shift at the hospital, 10 years of the smaller apartment, the older car, the vacation I didn't take, the coat I didn't replace. 10 years of looking at my bank account on the first of every month and moving a portion of what I had worked for into an account that was supposed to be building me something solid for my old age. "I have to go," I said. "Mama, please don't." "I have to go, Jonathan." I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table in my coat, and then, very quietly, in a kitchen where no one could see me, I put my face in my hands and I cried. Let me tell you how it started, because it didn't start with greed. I want to be fair about that, because I have always tried to be fair, even when fairness cost me something. Jonathan moved to North Carolina 11 years ago for work. Good job, good company, the kind of opportunity that made sense to follow. He bought a house out there, modest, manageable, and settled in. And when we started talking about my retirement, it was his idea. "Come up here, Mama. I'll find some land. We'll build you something. You can be close to me, have your own space, get out of Atlanta before Atlanta prices you out completely." It was a good idea. It sounded like a son looking after his mother. It sounded like exactly what I had raised him to be. I had a piece of land already, inherited from my own mother, sitting in rural North Carolina, not worth a fortune but worth something. Jonathan said we could build on it. He had a contractor friend. He knew what things cost. He would manage it. All I needed to do was send the money as I had it, and he would handle the rest. I believed him. I want to sit with that for a moment because I have had to sit with it myself. I believed my son. I did not ask for receipts. I did not ask to speak to the contractor. I did not fly up to look at the land more than twice in 10 years, and both times he had a reason the progress was slower than expected. Supply chain issues, the contractor had changed, permits were taking longer than anticipated. I nodded. I believed him. I sent more money. My mother used to say, the problem with a good heart is that it assumes everyone else has one too. I used to think that was a warning. I understand now that it was a prophecy. I did not leave the apartment for 2 days. I called into my shift. I was still doing part-time work at the front desk of a medical office 3 days a week because I had not yet fully retired, because I had been waiting until the house was ready. My supervisor was kind about it, said to take the time I needed. I needed 2 days. The first day I spent mostly in bed, not sleeping, just horizontal, looking at the ceiling, doing the kind of accounting that has nothing to do with numbers, going through the years, counting the moments when I should have asked more questions and didn't. This is not a productive exercise and I do not recommend it, but I think it is necessary. You have to walk through the whole thing before you can come out the other side. The second day I got up, made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and got angry. Not the crying kind of angry, the quiet kind. The kind that settles into the base of your spine and stays there, steady and warm, not asking to be expressed, just asking to be useful. I thought about what I had, I thought about what he had taken, and I thought about what, if anything, could be done about it. I am not a woman who knows much about lawyers. I have lived my life in a way that did not require them, but I knew enough to know that you don't let a situation like this sit without at least asking the question. So on the third morning I got dressed, properly dressed, the way my mother taught me, because you present yourself well when you need people to take you seriously, and I went to find one. Her name was Patricia Nolan. A friend from church had used her for an estate matter and said she was sharp and didn't waste your time. Her office was on the west side of Atlanta, second floor of a building that smelled like carpet cleaner and ambition. She was somewhere in her 50s, reading glasses on a chain around her neck, the kind of woman who listened with her whole face. I sat down across from her and I told her everything. I did not cry. I had done my crying. I laid it out the way I would lay out a patient intake form, chronological, factual, precise. 10 years, the approximate total, the land in North Carolina in my name, his house in which I had made no small number of mortgage payments without knowing that was what I was doing. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took her glasses off the chain and put them on and looked at the notes she had made. "Tell me about the land," she said. I told her, "And it's in your name." "Has been since my mother left it to me." She wrote something down. "And the money you sent, was any of it documented? Texts, emails, anything where he referenced the house specifically?" I thought about it. "I have texts," I said. "Years of them. He'd send updates sometimes, said things were coming along." She looked up. "I'm going to need those." I nodded. "Mrs. Doris," she said, and the way she said it, steady, direct, no performance of sympathy, told me I had found the right person. "I want you to understand that this will not be simple and it will not be fast, but I think there are things we can do." I folded my hands in my lap. "Then let's do them," I said. The first thing was the land. It was in my name. Had always been in my name. Jonathan had been using it as collateral for certain business arrangements. I will not pretend I fully understood the mechanism, but Patricia explained it clearly enough, and untangling it required paperwork and time and several phone calls that I was not present for, but was briefed on afterward. What it meant, practically, was that I could sell it. I did not want to sell my mother's land. I want to say that plainly. That land meant something to me beyond its dollar value. It was the last physical thing my mother had left me, and I had held on to it for 30 years, and letting it go felt like a particular kind of grief. But grief, I have learned, is not the same as regret. You can grieve a thing and still know you made the right decision. I sold the land. The second thing was Jonathan's business. Jonathan's company was, as he had told me, and as Patricia confirmed through her own inquiry, not doing well. But not doing well is different from worthless. There were assets, there were receivables, and there was, as it turned out, a paper trail of transactions that connected my transfers directly to business expenses, which meant that what I had sent was not a gift. It was an investment I had never consented to make. Patricia was very calm about this. I appreciated that about her. She didn't seem outraged on my behalf, which I didn't need, or dismissive, which I wouldn't have tolerated. She was simply methodical, efficient. She reminded me a little of myself. The third thing was the house. This was the most complicated. Jonathan had paid down a significant portion of his mortgage using money I had sent. This was documentable, cross-referenced across the years, which meant that a portion of his home equity was, in a legal sense that Patricia could argue and had argued before, not entirely his. Getting any of it required more phone calls and more paperwork, and one particular afternoon where I sat in Patricia's office for 3 hours, signing things and initialing things, while she explained each one with the patience of someone who understood that the person across from her was not a lawyer, but deserved to understand exactly what she was agreeing to. I understood exactly what I was agreeing to. Jonathan called on a Thursday. I had been expecting it. Patricia had warned me that once certain notices went out, I would hear from him quickly. She was right. He called 4 times before I answered. When I did, I was sitting in my armchair by the window with my reading glasses on and a cup of tea going cold on the side table, and I was entirely calm. "Mama." His voice had a quality I had not heard in it before, thinned out, stripped of the ease that usually lived in it. "Mama, what is happening?" "Hello, Jonathan. There are lawyers contacting my business. They're talking about the house. Mama, what is going on?" "I hired an attorney," I said, "to help me recover what I can of my money." Silence. "You can't—" He stopped. Started again. "Mama, if they go after the equity in my house, I could lose it. Do you understand that? I could lose my house." I looked out the window. Atlanta was doing what Atlanta does in October, the light going golden and low, the trees starting to think about changing. I had lived in this city for 40 years. I knew every quality of its light. "I understand," I said. "Then how can you do this? I'm your son." And there it was. The sentence I had been waiting for, the one I had known was coming the moment I sat down in Patricia's office. The sentence that had worked for most of my life, every single time it had been deployed. "I'm your son." I thought about the coat I had kept for 6 winters longer than I should have, the vacation I didn't take, the retirement I had delayed, year after year, waiting for a house that was never being built. I thought about a Tuesday morning, standing in my kitchen with my coat still on, asking my son how much of my money was left. "You are my son," I said, "and I love you, and I will love you until I leave this earth. But Jonathan, I have to live somewhere." "Mama, I have to live somewhere," I said again quietly. "And you took the money that was going to let me do that, so now I have to find another way." "It'll destroy the business. It could destroy everything I've built." "I know." "How can you know that and still do it?" I thought about this carefully before I answered, because I wanted to answer honestly. "Because you knew what you were doing with my money," I said, "and you did it anyway. For 10 years. And every time I asked about the house, you told me things were coming along." I paused. "You knew, and you kept going. I know, and I'm going to keep going too." There were other things I did that I did not mention to Jonathan on that phone call. Quiet things. The kind of things you do not announce because announcing them would give someone the opportunity to talk you out of them. I called my insurance agent the week after I saw Patricia. Jonathan had been the sole beneficiary on my life insurance policy for 22 years. I had put him there when his father left, and I wanted to make sure, whatever happened to me, that my son would be taken care of. He was taken care of. He had taken care of that himself, with my money, for a decade. I had the beneficiary changed to my church. I mentioned it to Cheryl, Pastor Reed's wife, because she handled certain administrative matters, and I wanted the church to be prepared. Cheryl, God bless her, is not a woman who keeps things to herself. Jonathan found out by Wednesday. He called at 7 in the morning, which told me everything about his state of mind. "You took me off your life insurance." "Good morning, Jonathan." "Mama, how could you do that? That policy was mine," I said, "has always been mine." "You're giving it to the church? After everything He stopped, reorganized. "I'm your son. I'm your only child. I know who you are." A pause. Then, with a different quality. "Careful now, the way someone is careful when they suspect there is more ground that could shift beneath them." "What else did you do?" I looked out at my oak trees. The morning light was just starting to come through. "What else did you change, Mama? The will? Something else? I need to know." "You don't need to know," I said pleasantly. "You need to do better." "That's not an answer." "No," I agreed. "It isn't." He was quiet for a long moment. I let the silence sit. I have spent a lot of my life filling silences that didn't need to be filled, and I am done with that particular habit. "Mama?" I hung up. "I want to tell you about Patricia, just briefly, because she deserves to be a part of this story." She called me on a Friday afternoon in early December, and her voice had a different quality than it usually did. Still calm, but underneath the calm, something that was almost satisfaction. "Doris," she said, "I have some numbers for you." She read them to me. I wrote them on the notepad I keep by the phone, the one with the roses on the cover that my friend Gwen gave me last Christmas. I wrote down the numbers and I looked at them for a moment. "Is that enough?" Patricia asked. "For what I have in mind," I said. "Yes." "Good," she said. And then, and this is the part I have thought about since, "You handled this with a lot of grace." I looked at the numbers on my rose-covered notepad. "I'm still angry," I said. "I know," she said. "Grace and anger can live in the same house." I thought that was the smartest thing anyone had said to me in years. I wrote that down too. Patricia also helped me put certain protections in place going forward. Documents that ensured that whatever I built from here, the cottage, whatever small savings I could rebuild, whatever I left behind when I was gone, was structured in a way that required no one's goodwill to execute, no informal arrangements, no trusting someone to do what they said they would do. Everything written down, witnessed, and filed somewhere that could not be undone by a phone call or a charming apology. I was not going to be in this position again. I was certain of that the way you are certain of things that have cost you enough to teach you permanently. I found the cottage in February. I was not looking for something large. I had let go of large. Large was the North Carolina house that existed only in the updates Jonathan had sent me over 10 years, the ones about permits and contractors and supply chains that I now understood had been constructed from nothing, assembled to keep me patient and sending. Large was a thing I had built in my imagination and no longer needed to carry around. What I found instead was a small cottage in rural Georgia, about 90 minutes south of Atlanta, white clapboard siding, a porch that ran the length of the front of the house, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a window above the sink that looked out at a yard full of old oak trees. The realtor showed it to me on a Thursday morning, and I stood in that kitchen looking out at those oak trees, and I felt something that I had not felt in a very long time. Settled. That's the word. Not happy exactly. Happy would come, I was sure of it, but it was going to take a little time to arrive, and I was prepared to be patient with it. What I felt standing in that kitchen was settled, like something that had been vibrating for months had found its frequency and stopped. I made an offer that afternoon. It was accepted by the weekend. My church friends helped me move. That's the part Jonathan would not understand, and cannot understand because Jonathan has lived for a long time in a way that is fundamentally solitary, despite being surrounded by people, always calculating, always tallying, never just showing up for someone because it's the right thing to do. He does not know what it feels like to have people show up for you with their trucks and their bad jokes and their insistence on stopping for lunch even when you said you didn't need to stop for lunch. Gwen came, and Marlene, who is 72 and still lifts things she shouldn't, and Pastor Reed's wife, Cheryl, who organized the whole operation with a clipboard and a system that I found both unnecessary and deeply touching. They loaded my life into a truck and drove it 90 minutes south and unloaded it again, and by evening I was standing in my kitchen, with a pot of soup someone had thought to bring, and the oak trees going dark outside the window. It was not what I had planned. I want to be honest about that. I had planned something different. I had planned North Carolina and proximity to my son, and a house that was built specifically for me, with the bathroom on the ground floor because I am 67, and I am thinking about stairs, and a garden where I'd intended to grow tomatoes, and the particular variety of collard greens my mother used to make. This was not that, but it was mine. Fully, completely, legally, unambiguously mine. No one had a claim on it. No one was managing it for me. No one was sending me updates about permits and contractors and supply chains. It was bought with my money, recovered, fought for, documented, and argued for by a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain, and it had my name on the deed and no one else's. I unpacked my kitchen first, the way I always do, then my bedroom, then last, the living room, where I put the armchair by the window the same way I had always put it, facing out, so I could watch the light change. Jonathan called in March. I answered. I always answer. Now. He is my son. That is not a condition I apply selectively. He asked how I was doing. I told him honestly, well, settling in. The porch needs some work, but I have someone coming to look at it. The oak trees are extraordinary in the morning light. He listened. He did not ask about the money or the lawyer or the business. I did not offer information about any of those things. Before he hung up, he said, "I'm glad you have a place, Mama." I thought about all the ways I could respond to that. I thought about everything it had cost to have this place. I thought about 10 years, and a coat kept too long, and a retirement delayed, and a Tuesday morning in my kitchen with my face in my hands. "Me too, baby," I said. "Me too." I planted tomatoes in April. The soil in rural Georgia is different from what I was used to, richer, darker, more willing. I dug the beds myself, which took longer than it would have 10 years ago, and which I did not ask for help with, because there are certain things a person needs to do with their own hands. I found some collard green seeds at a nursery in the next town over. The woman who ran it was in her 80s and had opinions about everything, which I appreciated. We talked for 45 minutes about soil pH, and I bought more than I had planned to because the conversation was worth it. I am not a woman who has ever had a lot of time for herself. I have been a mother, a worker, a church member, a caregiver, a reliable presence in the lives of other people. These are not things I regret. But I am learning, slowly, with the oak trees outside my window and the tomatoes coming up in the beds I dug myself, what it means to also be a presence in my own life. It turns out I like mornings. I knew this abstractly, but I know it concretely now. The specific quality of the light at 6:30 in rural Georgia, the sound of it, the particular silence that is not really silence at all, but is full of birds and wind, and the distant noise of a world that is not yet asking anything of me. I make my coffee. I sit on the porch. I watch the light do what light does. This is enough. This is, I am finding, more than enough. There is a thing my mother used to do that I have started doing again. Every evening before bed, she would go through what she called her accounting. Not money, she meant the day. What had happened. What she had learned. What she was grateful for and what she was still working through. She did this quietly, privately, just her and whatever version of God she was talking to on any given night. I have started doing it again, sitting in the armchair by the window with the oak trees going dark outside, going through my accounting. I am 67 years old. I have a porch that needs work and tomatoes coming up in beds I dug myself, and a kitchen window that looks out at trees that were old before I was born. I have a lawyer I trust and friends who came with a truck and a church I will find again in this new place, because I always find it. I have a son I love and do not entirely trust, which is a painful combination to carry and which I am learning to carry without pretending it doesn't weigh anything. I have my name on a deed. I have what I built, recovered, and refused to give up. I did not get the house I planned, I got the house I fought for, and somewhere in the distance between those two things, I found out something important about myself, that I am not, as it turns out, someone who waits quietly for what she was promised. I am someone who goes and gets it. I should have known that sooner, but I know it now. And the morning light on these Georgia oak trees is extraordinary. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe.